Chapter 11 is going to focus in on the interactions between humans and microbes. Microbes are ubiquitous. They're everywhere. And because they are everywhere, ultimately what that means for humans is that they influenced how we came to be. Even today, we have microbes on our skin, we have them up our nose, we have them in our intestines, and we have learned to live with them and they have learned to live with us. In fact, the benefit of having microbes in our intestines is one of their waste products is one of our vitamins. And for them, the benefit is that they get food out of the contents of our intestines. Let's talk about those interactions and infectious disease. Infectious disease is the disruption of a tissue or organism caused by microbes or microbial products. So in this case, we're not talking about a symbiotic relationship anymore. Now we're talking about something being disruptive. It's not necessarily going to be helpful. When we talk about infectious disease, that's what we mean. An infection is different than an infectious disease. An infection just means that there is the presence of microbes within the body, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to make you sick or it's going to lead to disease. There are a lot of things that influence whether or not this sickness, this illness is actually going to make you sick. We have two steps here. The first step is contact with the microbe or the microbial product. Why are there two steps? Because just because I came into contact with the microbe here does not mean that it's going to multiply and colonize in my body. There are a lot of things that influence whether that is even possible for the microbe to do. And we're going to talk about those things. If it does progress to an infection, then we've got the second step in an infectious disease, which is colonization of the body by the microbe. It usually basically means that they found the perfect place to grow and reproduce into multiple numbers. Something else to also understand, not all colonizations lead to infectious disease either. When I say that there are multiple factors that lend themselves to understanding whether or not this actually does this, I'm totally serious. There have to be the right numbers of bacteria. They have to have the right portal of entry. They have to get into your body the right way. They have to basically landing in the right part of that body, have the right environment to reproduce in. All of these things play a role in whether or not this thing is going to make you sick or it's just going to die out because it didn't really get where it needed to be or get the numbers that it needed to have. What are the chances of getting sick? These are the things that we're going to talk about. It depends on the pathogenicity of an organism. How virulent is it? How infectious is it? If we get one of these microbes on our body, it's enough to make us sick, or we need 350 million before it'll make us sick. So I can get 100 million and I'm perfectly fine. It depends on what the organism is programmed to do. It depends on its genetics, how pathogenic it is. The condition of the host. Am I a healthy 20-year-old who goes to the gym all the time and, I take care of my body, I eat right? Do I have a sparkling, fantastic, brand new immune system? Or am I a cancer patient who's going through chemo who has a compromised immune system? Those two patients would have a far different outcome if they were basically exposed to a microbe, because one has a perfectly functional immune system and the other, it's not working so well right now because they're going through chemotherapy. The number of microbes in the initial dose. There is such a thing as an optimal infectious dose. Some bacteria, as I previously said, need 300 million before they can make you sick. Some need 1. Depending on the bacteria and how many you were exposed to, that's going to determine whether it's enough to actually get you sick. Even for somebody who might be immunocompromised, if I need 300 million and they got exposed to 2, they'll probably be okay. And finally, how the microbes enter the body. We call this the portal of entry. If I'm a bacteria, I have to go through the right door to get into your body. If I don't use the right door, it's not going to work. For example, influenza needs your lungs. So if somebody who has influenza sneezes next to you and you're not wearing a mask, because let's say this is pre-pandemic, and you just breathed in influenza virus and it came in through the right portal of entry. However, if you are wearing a mask and somebody with influenza is next to you hacking up a lung and they get spittle or whatever you want to call it, droplets on your arm, that is not the right portal of entry. They can come up and lick your face and it won't matter because that's not the right entrance for the influenza virus. It literally cannot use that portal of entry because it's not the right place for it to be, for it to thrive. Let's compare the examples. Let's say that we have a microbe. The blue is the microbe. Very low virulence. In other words, it's not that infectious. And we don't get a really good optimum dose. It's not like it's, yeah, I've got the right number. It's very, very low. And then on top of that, it doesn't have the correct portal of entry. So it didn't even get into the body the way that it was supposed to. Let's say for the host that my genetic profile, just in general, my genetics lend themselves to me being resistant to this invader anyway, and that I do have previous exposure. With specific immunity, if I have previous exposure, it automatically means that I have an army already waiting for this invader to come into my body. And then I'm pretty good health. With all of these factors coming together, most likely this microbe is going to pass through your life and you will never even realize it was there. Your body either takes care of it because of the previous exposure or because it didn't have the correct portal of entry and you didn't get a good enough dose of it for it to actually infect you. It's not going to work anyway. Second example. Let's say as far as virulence goes, it's middle ground. I've got about 50% of the optimal dose. It did get into the correct portal of entry. As far as the host goes, I've got pretty good genetic factors that'll help me to resist it. I do have previous exposure and I'm in good health. Okay, so in this case, because it did get the correct portal of entry and it had a higher dosage than it did previously, you kind of have two options. One goes through unnoticed. Don't get sick, don't feel bad, nothing. The other, though, is that it could become established, but there's no disease associated with it. In other words, it got into the body, it started to multiply, but it didn't actually make me sick. It's just there. Next. Does it have a high virulence? Not really. It's maybe what? Let's see, 20, 40, 60, 80, not even. So this is maybe 50%. Did I get the optimal infectious dose? Not even close. If you look at the volume button, I'm not even close to that 100% optimal dose. Is it the correct portal of entry? No. For my host, I kind of have the genetic profile that resists it, but I haven't been exposed to it before. So the army that we would expect to be waiting if I had doesn't exist yet. I haven't made it yet. And as far as my general health goes, I'm doing pretty good. Again, the microbe may go through unnoticed. I didn't get the correct portal of entry. I'm not even close to the proper dosage of this bacteria, or I should say invader, to make me sick. But again, it could become established just without necessarily causing disease. The last example, this is perfect conditions for our bacteria, bad conditions for us. Does it have a high virulence? Obviously, yes, it does. Look at the volume button, it's really high. Did I get a good percentage of the optimal dose? Yes, I'm almost at 100% here. Did it get the correct portal of entry? Yes, green light, it totally did. Our host. Our genetics don't really lend themselves to being resistant to this invader. We've never seen it before, so we don't have a pre-made army to deal with it. And our general health isn't all that great. With all of these factors combined, the microbe is going to have perfect conditions to cause disease. So this is literally the perfect storm for us to get sick. Something else that I'm pretty sure you already know. Not all microbes are dangerous to us. Some are considered residential biota. In other words, they live inside of us. Normal resident biota, also known as indigenous flora or normal flora, are the collective group of bacteria, fungi, and other microbes that take up residence in and on our bodies. So we're not just talking about in our intestines, we actually have them on our skin, on the surface of our nose. These biota serve a variety of functions. They help to develop our immune systems, they help with digestion, they make vitamins for us. The ones that are in our large intestine and are eating our fecal material, getting the benefit of getting nutrients from that, are also releasing their own waste products that are beneficial to us in the fact that they're making vitamins that we ourselves cannot make. They help protect us against potential pathogens. There's something called microbial antagonism. Now think about English. In an English story, antagonist is the enemy, right? Or the bad guy. The biota that we have present in our body, the things that are already there, the microbiota that are already in our body, consider our body their home. Now imagine if somebody walked into your home and said, hey, so I'm just gonna move in. I'm gonna eat your food. Oh yeah? It's kind of the same thing. Our natural biota, the one that is in our body, will actually fight to protect their home. In a way, they are protecting us as well. In exchange, the biota get a comfy, nice place to live, and they have plenty of nutrients while they're there. And they also are protected from other things because they're in our body. The biota I'm talking about are normally only found in specific areas in the body. The sites that aren't listed here are assumed to be sterile. There's nothing there. The skin and the adjacent mucous membranes. So our skin, remember I said the inside of our nose, our mouth, the respiratory tract. You got to remember that when we breathe, we're bringing whatever is out here in. Our respiratory tract does have resident biota. Our gastrointestinal tract, which I've talked about ad nauseum, so we're just going to leave that alone. The outer opening of our urethra. Technically, while I understand that the urethra is an exit for our urine, the fact that it's open to the outside world also means that it's an entrance. It would be like a door being an exit only. Well, how many people come in through that door? Back in the day when we all went to movies in like the 80s, before they had cameras and things, people would go to the exit door and open it up to let their friends in so that they didn't have to pay for a movie. It was an exit only door, but they used it as an entrance. Same type of thing. The external genitalia, again, you got to remember it's outside, it's exposed. The vagina, the external ear, and the external eye. How do we get this biota to begin with? The uterus and its contents, when a baby is inside its mom, are sterile during both embryonic and fetal development. That means that when a baby is born, they don't have anything. They haven't been exposed to anything. The acquisition of microbes occurs during the birthing process and pretty much continues for the rest of your life. During birth, the baby is going to be colonized with the mother's vaginal biota. If they're not delivered vaginally, they still have other biota they're exposed to. Even in a C-section, yes, I know they use betadine, but remember, not every cleaner can get everything. So we're just reducing numbers. So when that baby comes out of mom and is exposed to her skin, they get that biota or get exposure to that biota. Shortly after birth, the baby acquires biota from their parents. They hold them, they kiss them, they love on them, they put them against their chest. All of these are exposing them to the parents' natural biota, the stuff that's on their skin, the stuff that's in their breath coming out of their mouth and their lungs. If the parent coughs near them, they're being exposed, the baby is being exposed. Healthcare personnel. Yes, I can wash my hands with antibacterial soap, but again, nothing is 100% effective. So they're getting exposed, not high numbers, but they're still getting exposed. Friends, family, pets coming in contact with the baby. Even food and your environment can expose you to different types of biota. Thinking on it, you want the baby exposed to these things. I understand that we're in a pandemic right now and it's not safe. Different story. But you want the baby to get exposed to these things so that their immune system can kick in and actually make those armies I was talking about to fight these things that could possibly be injurious to that baby. If I have built up this army, it basically ensures that I've got a good start to my immune system to fight off anything I'm potentially going to get exposed to. Terminology. These are terms related to the progress of an infection. So a pathogen, when I say pathogen, I'm talking about a microbe that is potentially dangerous, not something that lives with us, that lives in harmony and kumbaya and all that. Instead, I'm talking about a microbe whose relationship with us, with its host, is parasitic, and it's going to result in disease. I'm not talking about the stuff that's in our intestine that helps make us vitamins. Pathogenicity. So a pathogen is something that's infectious, right? Pathogenicity is basically, how pathogenic is it? It's how much potential does this microbe have to cause an infection or disease? A true pathogen. This is a pathogen that is capable of causing disease not only in the infirmed, in the ill or immunocompromised, but in healthy people with normal immune systems. A true pathogen has the capacity to infect anyone. COVID-19 is a real good example of that. COVID-19 didn't pick and choose. It went to everybody. Yes, it was more likely to get in people who were immunocompromised, but that didn't mean that healthy 18-year-olds who were athletes, student athletes, and healthy as could be with great immune systems also didn't get COVID-19. It is considered a true pathogen. Opportunistic pathogens. They are capable of causing disease when the host's defenses are compromised. If they or when they become established in a part of the body that is not really natural to them. Generally, opportunistic pathogens aren't considered pathogenic for someone who doesn't have some type of issue. So they're not going to infect people that are perfectly healthy. At least they shouldn't. But if they see an opportunity, that's why they're called opportunistic, they will take advantage of it and infect. Virulence. A microbe's ability to establish itself in a host and cause damage. How bad is it? If you say something is highly virulent, it's bad. It means that it is really highly likely to be disease-causing and even death-causing. Something that is highly virulent would be something like Ebola. In, I think it was the 80s, maybe the early 90s, Ebola showed up on the map and there was nothing anybody could do. If you knew somebody had Ebola, you could try to make them comfortable and then slowly watch them bleed out on a bed, and there was nothing you could do. It was highly virulent. And at the time, there was no way to treat it. When we talk about the virulence, it's how dangerous is this thing? A virulence factor. It's any characteristic or structure that helps that microbe to not only establish itself, but helps it to cause damage to its host. Virulence factors can be things like antibiotic resistance. If something is antibiotic resistant and there's only one antibiotic to treat with it, it has a virulence factor. It makes it a lot more effective as an infectious disease because there's no way to treat it.